Hi there, and thanks for stopping by. This channel is all about exploring powerful ideas that shape our world, from technology and education to culture and critical reflection. Whether you're here to learn, get inspired, or join thought-provoking conversations, you're in the right place. Expect fresh content, insightful discussions, and tools to help you think deeper and grow stronger. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you're always up to date. Let's learn, question, and evolve together. In this session, I will explore the topic Understanding Immigrant Fear in the USA and its critical implications for Jamaica and the Caribbean. I decided to reflect on this topic after hearing two non-born American citizens said they are fearful of the USA. So let us do some reflection. Many people living in the United States who were not born there are currently living in fear. This fear comes from stricter immigration rules, fewer protections for those seeking help, and a legal system that is becoming harder to navigate. At the same time, harsh political messages are making things worse for these communities, causing stress, worry, and financial problems. But the impact doesn't stop in the US. These changes also affect countries like Jamaica and others in the Caribbean. When people are sent back suddenly, deported, or when families in the US can't send money home, remittances, it creates problems for those countries. Diplomatic relationships between the US and Caribbean nations can also be strained. Now let us go deeper. Right now, immigration policies in the United States are changing in ways that make life much harder for people who weren't born there. In 2025, the government started focusing heavily on enforcing strict immigration rules, especially targeting people without legal documents. This has created a lot of fear, especially since the number of immigrants living in the US reached a record high of 47.8 million in 2023, including many without legal status. At the same time, there's been a lot of political talk about deporting large numbers of people and limiting access to asylum. But this isn't new. Looking back at US history, immigration policies have often been shaped by fear and prejudice. In the past, laws targeted poor people, Asian communities, and immigrants from Southern and Eastern Europe. These laws were often based on racism, economic fears, and the idea that immigrants didn't belong. Even though many industries have relied on immigrant workers, there has always been a struggle between those who support immigration and those who want to keep people out. Today, the US is spending more money than ever before on border control and immigration enforcement, showing just how serious the focus on restriction has become. This situation is part of a bigger, ongoing pattern where immigrants are treated as outsiders. Understanding this history helps us see that today's fear and challenges are not new, and that lasting change will take time, awareness, and strong community support. Right now, immigration policies in the United States are changing in ways that make life much harder for people who weren't born there. In 2025, the government started focusing heavily on enforcing strict immigration rules, especially targeting people without legal documents. This has created a lot of fear, especially since the number of immigrants living in the US reached a record high of 47.8 million in 2023, including many without legal status. At the same time, there's been a lot of political talk about deporting large numbers of people and limiting access to asylum. But this isn't new. Looking back at US history, immigration policies have often been shaped by fear and prejudice. In the past, laws targeted poor people, Asian communities, and immigrants from Southern and Eastern Europe. These laws were often based on racism, economic fears, and the idea that immigrants didn't belong. Even though many industries have relied on immigrant workers, there has always been a struggle between those who support immigration and those who want to keep people out. Today, the US is spending more money than ever before on border control and immigration enforcement, showing just how serious the focus on restriction has become. This situation is part of a bigger, ongoing pattern where immigrants are treated as outsiders. Understanding this history helps us see that today's fear and challenges are not new, and that lasting change will take time, awareness, and strong community support. Aggressive immigration rules and policy changes. The US government has taken strong new steps to make it harder for people to enter or stay in the country. On June 9, 2025, a new travel ban was put in place. It affects people from 19 countries, including Haiti. The government says this is for national security and because some countries don't do enough to help with deportations. But many critics argue that the ban is unfair and seems more political than based on real facts. Some countries with worse records weren't even included. At the same time, the US has stopped scheduling certain visa interviews for students, workers, and scholars. The government is also adding new background checks, including checking social media, which makes it harder for people to visit or study in the US. These actions are seen by many as punishing entire countries for things their governments have done or failed to do. Instead of focusing on individual cases, the US is sending a message that it's taking a hard line on immigration, scaring people and stopping even those who have good reasons to come. On the border, things have gotten even tougher. The government has called the situation a national emergency and labeled it an invasion. Over 10,000 troops have been sent to the southern border. The goal is to deport 1 million immigrants every year, more than 3 times the highest number ever recorded. New rules allow quick deportations of undocumented people, even far from the border, if they can't prove they've lived in the US for over 2 years. Arrests can now happen in places that were once off limits, like schools, hospitals, and churches. Local police departments are also being asked to help with immigration enforcement. All these actions are meant to show that the US is serious about stopping immigration, but they also create fear and may hurt relationships with other countries while putting human rights at risk. The sheer scale and aggressive nature of these proposed enforcement actions, mass deportations, increased detention, and expanded interior enforcement into sensitive locations, transcend typical immigration control. This constitutes a deliberate strategy to create a pervasive atmosphere of fear designed to intimidate and deter non citizens, regardless of their legal status. The objective is not merely to remove unauthorized individuals, but to induce self deportation and discourage any actions that might draw attention to immigration status, thereby fundamentally reshaping the daily lives of immigrant communities. This approach risks undermining public trust in essential institutions like police, schools, and hospitals, potentially leading to negative public health and safety outcomes for entire communities, including US citizens in mixed status families. The administration has also systematically dismantled humanitarian pathways, further contributing to the climate of fear. Programs such as the Central American Minors, CAM program, and various family reunification parole initiatives have been terminated. The CBP One app, previously used for scheduling asylum appointments, was shut down and rebranded as CBP Home, now designed for self deportation. The Migrant Protection Protocols, MPP, commonly known as Remain in Mexico, have been reinstated. Safe mobility offices in Latin America, which provided legal avenues for migrants to apply for U.S. entry, have been closed. Critically, the Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela CHNV parole program, which benefited over 531,000 individuals, has been terminated by a Supreme Court ruling, making its beneficiaries eligible for deportation. Aggressive actions to revoke temporary protected status, TPS, are ongoing, and the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program, USRAP, has been suspended, halting refugee entries and canceling scheduled flights. This systematic dismantling of various legal and humanitarian pathways, from family reunification to refugee resettlement and parole programs, points to a deliberate policy to close off almost all avenues for legal entry or stay for vulnerable populations. This forces migrants into more irregular, often more dangerous routes and smugglers, thereby increasing their vulnerability and exposure to risk. The clear intent is to deter migration by making legal entry virtually impossible and to induce self deportation through the threat of harsher consequences. This strategy not only exacerbates humanitarian crises by denying safe haven to those fleeing persecution, but also undermines international norms and agreements regarding asylum and refugee protection. It effectively shifts the burden of managing migration crises onto neighboring countries and could lead to increased human suffering. New self deportation initiatives and mandatory registration rules are also contributing to the fear. The CBP Home app was launched with a self deportation feature, enabling migrants with final removal orders or revoked parole status to schedule their own departure. A mandatory registration rule now requires certain undocumented immigrants to register with DHS, providing detailed biographic information and fingerprints. Failure to register can result in civil and criminal penalties. Furthermore, ICE has gained real time access to taxpayer information to identify individuals for removal. The administration is also considering daily fines of up to $998 for noncompliance with removal orders, retroactively applied for up to 5 years, with potential property seizure for nonpayment. These initiatives represent a shift from direct physical apprehension to a strategy that weaponizes administrative and financial pressures to compel non citizens to leave voluntarily. The American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, describes this as a dangerous catch-22. Individuals risk immediate custody and deportation if they register, but face criminal prosecution if they do not. By creating a system where noncompliance carries severe legal and financial repercussions, the government aims to induce self-deportation through fear and economic hardship, rather than relying solely on costly and logistically challenging mass deportations. This approach also expands the surveillance state, granting agencies like ICE access to sensitive data, such as taxpayer information, to identify targets. This strategy blurs the lines between civil immigration enforcement and criminal prosecution, potentially eroding trust in government institutions and pushing vulnerable communities further into the shadows, making them less likely to engage with any public services. Finally, challenges to birthright citizenship and the implementation of English only language policies contribute to the climate of fear. Executive Order WARTI Now 160 seeks to end birthright citizenship for children of undocumented immigrants and non citizens on temporary visas, although this has been blocked by federal courts. Additionally, Executive Order 14224 designates English as the official language of the United States, revoking former guidance that required federal agencies to provide services in languages other than English. While challenges to birthright citizenship face legal hurdles and English only policies may be largely symbolic in their legal effect, their introduction serves a powerful rhetorical purpose. These policies, coupled with dehumanizing rhetoric, aim to redefine who is considered American, implicitly excluding non-born citizens and their US-born children from full belonging. This redefinition, rooted in xenophobia, creates a profound psychological impact, fostering a sense of not being wanted in this country and intensifying fear beyond immediate deportation threats. This ideological shift could lead to increased social fragmentation, discrimination, and a chilling effect on cultural expression and civic participation among immigrant communities, even those with legal status. How these policies are hurting people. Tough immigration policies in the US are not just changing laws, they are deeply affecting people's minds, emotions, and lives. Many immigrants, even those who are legally in the country, feel like they are being hunted. They live in constant fear of being taken away by ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. This fear can lead to serious mental health issues like anxiety, depression, and even PTSD. A Jamaican therapist in New York says that both adults and children are struggling emotionally, especially when they fear their family members might be deported. Many immigrants face discrimination in their daily lives. They are treated unfairly at work, paid less, or denied promotions. Black and Hispanic immigrants say they often feel unwelcome, not just at work, but also in hospitals and neighborhoods. Some are insulted just for speaking a different language or told to go back to where they came from. Political talk often paints immigrants as a threat, using harsh words like invasion or flood, which makes them feel like outsiders. The fear of families being torn apart is one of the biggest worries. Many immigrants live in fear every day that someone they love might be detained or deported. Children, especially, suffer. Some even write goodbye letters in case their parents disappear. Financial struggles are also common. Many immigrants can't afford food, housing, or medical care. They are afraid to ask for help, even when they are legally allowed to, because they fear it will affect their status or make them a target. Some don't even leave their homes in case they are caught. All of this fear causes people to pull away from schools, hospitals, and police. This is called a chilling effect, when fear stops people from doing things that are normally safe. In the end, these harsh policies don't just hurt immigrants, they make the whole country less healthy, less safe, and more divided. Losing legal protections and fairness. The US government's recent immigration actions are not just tough, they are also changing the rules to make it harder for immigrants to defend themselves legally. Many legal protections that once helped people stay safe and get a fair hearing are being taken away. For example, the government has started using a very old law from 1798 meant only for wartime enemies to quickly deport people, even when they have legal protections. In one case, a father from Maryland was wrongly deported to El Salvador. Even though the government admitted its mistake, he was eventually returned. Some migrants have even been held at Guantanamo Bay, a military prison usually used in war. The immigration courts are also being weakened. Many judges and staff have been fired or pushed into early retirement. The number of appeals judges was reduced, and new rules say that some asylum cases can be thrown out without even holding a hearing. Children traveling to the US alone have lost their access to free legal help, even though a court told the government to restore it. As a result, the number of pending immigration cases has exploded to over 3.6 million. There are more troubling stories too. One woman, legally living in Puerto Rico, was detained and sent to Texas for deportation, even though she had the right documents. The ACLU and other groups are fighting back in court, trying to stop illegal deportations and protect people's rights. Some students have even lost their visas just for speaking out against the government, raising concerns about freedom of speech. These changes aren't accidents. They are part of a plan to make deportations faster by making it harder for immigrants to fight back. But in doing so, the government is weakening basic legal rights for everyone. Legal experts warn this could hurt America's justice system in the long run and damage trust in the rule of law. Jamaican migration to the US and its impact on the Caribbean Jamaicans have been moving to the United States for many years. A major change happened after the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act, which allowed more non-white immigrants to come from places like the Caribbean. Today, large Jamaican communities live in areas such as New York City and South Florida. By 2020, over 1 million people of Jamaican descent were living in the US. Jamaicans have historically been invited to work on farms and large projects like the Panama Canal. The close distance between Jamaica and the US and the hope of better opportunities continue to drive this migration. Across the Caribbean, migration plays a huge role. In fact, for every person living in the region, there is one person from the Caribbean living abroad. These diaspora communities stay closely connected to their home countries, sending money, called remittances, and supporting families. Because of these strong ties, any sudden changes in US immigration policies, like deportations or travel bans, have big effects on families and communities back home. These policies don't just affect individuals in the US, they create stress and financial hardship for entire Caribbean nations that rely on those connections. Economic and social effects in the Caribbean. Remittances are critical to Caribbean economies. In Jamaica, for example, remittances make up over 17% of the country's income. A proposed 5% US tax on money sent home by non-citizens could reduce these funds, hurting families that rely on them for food, shelter, and education. Experts warn that this could push people to use unsafe ways to send money, risking loss or fraud. When you combine reduced remittances with an increase in deportations, it creates a serious problem. Many Caribbean countries are not equipped to support large numbers of returnees, especially those with criminal records. This double pressure, less money coming in and more people needing help, can increase poverty and strain social services. It may also cause more people to leave, starting the cycle all over again. The pervasive fear among non-born American citizens in the US is a direct and multi-layered consequence of deliberate policy choices and rhetoric, carrying far-reaching human, social, and economic costs both within the United States and across the Caribbean. Aggressive US enforcement, the systematic rollback of humanitarian pathways, and the erosion of legal protections create a widespread climate of anxiety, impacting immigrants' mental health, economic stability, and access to essential services. This fear, coupled with direct policy impacts like mass deportations and proposed remittance taxes, significantly strains Jamaica and the broader Caribbean, affecting their economies, social services, and overall human security. The interconnectedness of these dynamics underscores the imperative for a comprehensive and humane approach to migration. Thanks. Until next time.